Welcome back, everyone. So today we're diving into a brand new explainer, and we are unpacking what I can only describe as a really incredible modern American love story. It's one that totally challenges our everyday definition of wealth. We're going to peel back these superficial layers of society and ask ourselves, what really matters? If you've ever wondered how the extremes of massive wealth and absolute poverty collide when matters of the heart get involved, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Because it brings us to this big question. Can true love actually survive the ultimate collision of wealth and poverty? It's kind of a wild thought, right? I mean, we live in a world that is frankly obsessed with status, bank balances, and prestige. But what happens when an unstoppable force, like genuine, raw connection, meets the immovable object of societal class? That's the dramatic narrative we're unfolding today. We're going to break down the timeline and those pivotal moments of a story that answers this exact question.
All right, part one. Two very different worlds, Sophia and Daniel. So let's set the stage by meeting our protagonists. They both live in New York City, but they are experiencing two completely different realities. On one hand, we have Sophia. She lives in a small, rented house with her mom after losing her father a few years ago. And she is literally grinding it out, working morning shifts at a local cafe and then going to college in the evenings. She really represents pure ambition and just sheer survival. Now, in stark contrast, we've got Daniel. He is the only son of New York's biggest real estate tycoon. We're talking luxury cars, a massive mansion, basically the whole shebang that people dream of. But here's the catch. Despite all that extreme wealth, the source material highlights this profound emotional isolation. He was deeply lonely. He'd never really experienced a genuine relationship. So you have these two opposite extremes occupying the exact same city.
Which brings us to part two, the wallet and the spark. A fateful meeting.
Because, eventually these two parallel lines were bound to intersect. And it all started on this otherwise totally ordinary morning at the very cafe where Sophia was working her shift. Daniel comes in for a coffee, and right there at the counter, he accidentally drops his wallet. Now picture this scene for a second. Sophia picks it up, and inside this wallet there are thousands of dollars in cash, plus some highly important cards. For students struggling to just pay rent and tuition, that's a massive temptation. But she doesn't even hesitate. She hands it straight back to Daniel without taking a single dime. And Daniel? He's absolutely stunned. He actually tells her she could have kept some of the cash as a reward.
But she just smiles and delivers this super powerful lesson that her mother taught her. She says, hard-earned money is the real wealth. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. For Daniel, a guy who's constantly surrounded by people who just want him for his money, this level of integrity was completely foreign to him. It honestly touched his heart right then and there. It wasn't just physical attraction. He fell head over heels for her profound simplicity and her absolute honesty.
And this really shows how a genuine connection gets built. It didn't happen overnight. It started with Daniel making daily visits to the cafe. That naturally evolved into this really beautiful growing friendship. He loved her incredibly hardworking nature, and she appreciated that he was actually really humble and polite despite his crazy wealth. So months of getting to know each other culminated in this gorgeous evening walk through Central Park. And right there, under a golden sunset sky, Daniel took a deep breath and finally confessed his love for her.
Well, naturally, Sophia was pretty shocked. Her immediate reaction was totally grounded in reality. She pointed out the obvious elephant in the room, saying, you are very rich and I'm just a poor girl. Our worlds are completely different. But Daniel's response? That is the emotional core of this whole explainer. He looks at her and simply says, my biggest wealth is your heart. He held her hand and literally dismantled that entire financial barrier she was so worried about. It was exactly the reassurance she needed to open up about her own feelings, and they officially started a relationship.
But hold on, here comes part three, the ultimate test of love, the father's ultimatum.
Because, as we all know, every good story needs a little conflict, right? When Daniel's extremely wealthy, status-obsessed father found out his son was dating a cafe worker, he was absolutely furious. He prioritized family prestige above literally everything else. So he calls Sophia into his office and slides a check right across the desk. $500,000. $500,000. This was a straight-up bribe. It was the price tag he was putting on making her disappear from his son's life forever. And let's be real, for a struggling student, this is completely life-changing money. It's a sum that could have solved basically every practical problem she and her mom had.
So she was faced with the ultimate choice. The father's demand was clear. Take the money, abandon the relationship, and leave forever. But Sophia? She made her choice. With tears in her eyes, she firmly slid that check right back across the desk. She looked at him and said, "Sir, I may be poor, but I cannot sell my love and my self-respect." She chose her integrity over an instant payout. And, as you might guess, this enraged the father even more. He stepped in and forcefully separated them, literally packing Daniel off to London to sever the connection entirely. But right before he left, Daniel promised he would return and Sophia promised she would wait.
This brings us to part 4. 3 years of growth, separation, and success.
Even though they were now separated by an entire ocean with zero immediate way to be together, they didn't just sit around in despair. They really used that time. In year 1, they're apart, but they are working tirelessly. By year 2, they're both actively pursuing these high-level goals. And then check out year 3. The payoff is huge. Sophia completely transformed her life through sheer grit. She finished her studies and became a highly successful software engineer. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't just sitting idle over in London either. He studied business and managed to expand his father's empire internationally, taking it to completely new heights. So their love, even though it was physically paused, actually became this incredible catalyst for their own spectacular individual success.
Moving into part 5, the triumphant reunion. Back in New York.
Okay, so after 3 long years of building themselves up, the wait was finally over. Daniel comes back to New York, and the very first thing on his mind isn't his family's wealth or, his big business expansion. It's the promise he made. He immediately heads out to search the old cafe where they first met. But 3 years is a long time, and Sophia had moved on to this massive career. She obviously wasn't there, but after days of frantic searching, he finally tracks her down at the office of a major tech company. And guys, that emotional climax is just everything. When they finally lock eyes, Daniel tells her his love hasn't changed one bit, and Sophia just smiles, telling him she never stopped waiting. Against all odds, they kept their promises.
But I know what you're thinking. What about the father? Well, the dynamic there had completely shifted. Daniel's dad now saw Sophia not as that struggling cafe worker, but as this brilliant, self-made software engineer who achieved real success entirely on her own merits. He witnessed her sheer determination firsthand, and it hit him. He realized he'd made a grave mistake by judging her purely based on her initial financial status. Humbled by her journey, he actually formally apologized to both of them and genuinely asked for their forgiveness.
So they finally tie the knot in this beautiful New York church wedding. And honestly, the best part of the whole event was the guest list itself. It was this perfect, beautiful blend of people from both rich and poor backgrounds all sitting side by side. It literally became a physical representation of the story's core moral, that true relationships are built on a solid foundation of trust, honesty, and mutual respect, completely ignoring whatever your financial status might be.
Which leaves us with this really compelling final thought to ponder. Does true love really ignore status in today's world? I mean, it's so easy to be cynical nowadays, but Sophia and Daniel's journey really challenges us to reevaluate exactly how we measure the worth of the people around us. Is wealth really just what's sitting in our wallets, or is it the integrity of our character? I'd love for you to think about what the true measure of wealth is in your own life. Thank you so much for exploring this story and its incredible lessons with me in today's explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.